few announcements to make before we begin. First of all, if you are wanting to sell a few books at the Arts Festival and come sit with our group, we have a table and we have a sign-up sheet that's in the back. Deb's holding it up, and we have slots. And if you really want to come, and there's somebody at the time you need to come, just negotiate with us. We'll figure out something. Bradley signed up for the whole rest of the afternoon on Sunday, but he's not going to be sitting there. He said that he's going to go around and recruit people to, or try to interest people into coming and seeing what we're all about. So there's a spot. There's going to be 2 spots for our folks, and we'd love to have you. Even if you don't have a book, if you want to come, like last year I didn't bring any of my books to sell. I just wanted to come and see what we were doing, and to kind of get an idea about what we were looking at, since I knew I was going to be the new president. So if you would like to come and help set up on Saturday morning, I'm bringing all my stuff in at 9, and if you want a poster of your stuff or a banner or something that you want us to advertise, please bring it, or contact me during the week, this next week, and run it by my house, and we will get it in and get it there for you to have some exposure. Okay. Any questions, just come and talk to me about it, please. We've got our raffle going. There's some great stuff back there. There's a box of wild sunflower seeds. I mean, it's a big box. That just looks like so much fun. Anything you donate will go to giving a small amount of money to our wonderful speakers, and that helps us have some cash on hand for those guys. Please start writing your story for Beneath the Lubbock Sky, and let Linda Massey know if you are willing to read or evaluate artwork that is submitted, or KJ, please. We welcome writers who are members to contribute to our anthology, so help us to recruit from outside the Alliance. We would love to have writers that know things about Lubbock and want to tell us their stories. If you would like to serve on the board, we still have some positions open, so let us know. We have hospitality. The board members are taking turns serving as the hospitality, that function. And also we have several people that are double duty that you would relieve us of some of that information, especially someone that's interested in serving on the board for next year. Those are all of my announcements. I would like, of course, we're glad to welcome Rick. But we have Jerry is going to be our author spotlight. Would you like to introduce you? Okay. I was going to talk about Barnes and Noble. Okay, talk about the Barnes and Noble. Talk about the Barnes and Noble Book Fair. Come on, KJ.
I need to talk about something.
Okay.
No. I want to talk.
Hello, everybody. We have signed up to be part of the Barnes & Noble Book Fair, which is a fundraising event for Caprock. And the premise of it essentially is that if you come in during the time that we have the book fair, which is Memorial Day weekend, and you purchase something and mention Caprock at the register, whether it's food, music, books, we will get a percentage of the proceeds. So, put that in your calendar for that. We also have several slots for authors to come and sign their books. We will be downstairs in the area where the music is sold, and we have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I have sign-up sheets right here. There is a caveat, unfortunately. When I signed up the first time, Wade, the manager over there, said, "Hey, anyone can come, whatever." And then when I checked with him recently just to get all the details, he said you have to be in, not just in Amazon, you have to have your paperback wide, or at least in Ingram or something where he can order the books, and then you'll sign them, and then, they'll get the proceeds, and you'll get the commission on the other end when you sell books. So, unfortunately, there's that caveat. But we also have another thing that we're doing to bring more people into the store is we're going to do a book cover contest. And when you walk into the mall, it's the entrance right near the Barnes & Noble, there's a bunch of shelves that are part of the Barnes & Noble, part of the Barnes & Noble store. That's where we'll have our books up for display, and then we'll have a little voting box and little slips that you can vote for your favorite cover. We might do top 3, and then we're looking for prizes for people. So if you can't do the signing, or even if you can, we would love to have your books, and we can have as many as you want. What it will be, essentially, we're trying to get raise some money. Hold that up again, Deb. Deb back there has a cute little box with a green label. We're taking donations so that we can fundraise to give prizes to the folks who are going to win. So I've already committed to putting in a $50 Barnes & Noble gift card as one of the prizes. So if you want to put a couple bucks in there, we'll add it up and have some other prizes. So I'm asking you to bring in your books next meeting. And we're just going to put your book up. If you don't want your book there and you want a little poster, make it the size of your book so that it's not a different size than anyone else. Or, put them up. If you want to put several books in, that's great. And we'll just have a little voting booth. And hopefully you will tell all of your friends and family to come in and to vote for your cover, because that's the purpose. And then while you're doing that, let them know as well that if they buy something when they're there, whether it's a coffee or a CD or a book, that we will get some of the proceeds. So that's that. So when you're done with the meeting, come up and sign. I'll also put it in our next newsletter and be promoting it. So if you want to just look at your schedule and come back to me on email and after the next newsletter, do that too. But there are only so many slots, so I would say today is a better opportunity since you are here. Kim?
Good morning. I have another fundraiser to talk about. So you are having dinner on May 18th at Chipotle on 82nd Street and Quaker in the Kings Gate Shopping Center. So we're having, it's also a fundraiser, so from 5 to 9 p.m. at Chipotle. It's a Saturday, so you know you're not going to be going out on Saturday night. That's fine. You can go to Chipotle and dinner with us. So put it on your calendar. So last month we did a fundraiser at Richie's, and I said, put it on your calendar. Y'all not leaving the spot until the phones come out. So you'll put it on your calendar. Put it. Is it? Okay. Put it on the calendar. May 18th, in the year of our Lord, 2024, 5 to 9 p.m., Chipotle, 82nd and Quaker. Be fun evening, be fun time. Just like with the Barnes & Noble fundraiser, you can invite friends, you can take your whole family, tell them at the checkout that it's for Caprock Writers, and we get a 25%, I think, maybe 20% of the proceeds. So, be here. You know you love Chipotle, they're the best. Unless you're one of those sad people who have that gene where cilantro tastes like soap. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's very sad, because I love cilantro. I'm so grateful I'm not one of those people. Anyway, all right, so I'll see y'all May 18th. I'll remind you again next month. But anyway, we'll see you May 18th. All right, thank you.
Spotlight is James Stoddard, and we are so pleased to have them to come speak to us today. I'm excited about reading his books. I've heard so many good things about them, and I haven't been reading anything. I've been being lazy. So anyway, I'm so excited. James, will you come tell us about your writing journey?
Okay, I'm not sure why I was so fascinated with fantasy growing up. I think it was maybe the era that I grew up in. The Twilight Zone had just come out. Star Trek, the original Star Trek came out. We landed a man on the moon. I think all of those things contributed. But I started writing when I was about 14 years old in study hall for something to do. And I was writing science fiction because I was reading it at that time, particularly Ray Bradbury, but some other writers as well. And so I was trying to write science fiction until I read The Lord of the Rings. And Gene Wolfe, the author, talks about the Golden Book. And the Golden Book is that book that you read that changes your life or affects your life. And we've all got one. Some book that you read at some time that you carry with you for the rest of your life. Maybe you read it 5 or 6 times. I read The Lord of the Rings at least that many, I think. And I hope to read it a couple more times while I'm on the planet. Now, when The Lord of the Rings came out, and I knew that kind of thing was what I wanted to write, but fantasy was not a genre. It did not exist. Science fiction was a genre, and some fantasy was published under that, but it was not a genre. And so Valentine Books started trying to find fantasy to publish, and there wasn't any. And so they began to look at older works. And from about 1969 to 1973, they published a series of fantasy novels that went back to the late 1800s. People who you may not have heard of, you may have heard of William Morris because he invented wallpaper and chairs and a whole bunch of stuff as well. Not actually invented it, but he came up with styles of it. George MacDonald, Lord Dunsany, who was a English or Scottish baron. Anyway, these were a lot of them very stylistic writers. And so those were my influences, and one of the things that I came away from that was that every fantasy novel should be different. And now we look at the thousands of fantasy novels that are out there, and it's become a genre, and so we have all the different categories. But that wasn't really my concept of fantasy from what I'd seen, and those were my influences. And in college, while I was getting my business degree, I wrote a fantasy novel. It's still in a box somewhere in my house, and will remain there for the rest of its life. But after college, I wrote a short story, and in those days, writing short stories was how you got into the science fiction fantasy world. And so the story I wrote was called The Perfect Day. I sent it to an editor by the name of George Sithers. He sent it back and said, I like the concept, I don't like the ending, fix it and send it back to me. So I sent it back to him. I made changes, I sent it back. He sent it back to me, and he said, you've almost got it, but this is a little too philosophical, we need some kind of action, rewrite it and send it back to me. So you don't get that anymore. You just don't get it. And I'm very grateful to him for the time that he spent. Anyway, so I sent it, he actually changed companies. He went to Amazing Stories magazine, so I lost track of him for a short period of time. Then he appeared, and so I sent it to him, and he published it. Now at that time, Amazing Stories was kind of a big deal because Steven Spielberg had licensed that name for a series of television shows that he did. So it was kind of a neat thing. Now, I'm a master at marketing, and so after publishing that short story, I immediately quit writing for a number of years. And that was because I've always had a passion for music and for writing, and it's been both a blessing and a curse. And so at that point, I was trying to do songwriting. I had been out to California where I nearly starved to death, trying to get into the music business. And I came back home. South Plains College had just started a program on how to record, be a sound recording engineer. Started taking classes there, created a home studio, and I was sending songs out to publishers to try to get songs published at that point. That was the absolute wrong way to do that. In those days, if you wanted to be in the music business, you really needed to move to Los Angeles or Nashville. And so I compiled a lot of rejection letters from that. But it ended up with my getting a job at South Plains College teaching sound technology, which turned out to be a really great career. Now, in the 1990s, while I was teaching, I wrote a novel called The Old Armiger War. And then I also started work on the novel The High House, which would be published. So that year, coincidentally, Writer's Digest came out with a big, thick book that was Writer's Market for Science Fiction and Fantasy. And so it had lists of all the agents that were interested in science fiction and fantasy. They never published it again, as far as I know. It was a one-shot deal. Probably wasn't terribly successful because it was kind of expensive. Anyway, I bought the book. I sent 25 form letters. It would have the agent's name and address on the top, as we used to do. And but basically, the letter was a form letter talking about my book, and I sent 25 out for the Old Armiger War. I received 2 responses from agents, and I ended up communicating with one of those agents, who was Donald Moss, who was the Donald Moss agency in New York. I sent him the manuscript to the Old Armiger War, and in the letter I mentioned that I was writing The High House and what the concept was for it. And so he wasn't interested in the Old Armiger War, but he says, I want to see The High House when you get done with it. And so I finished it. I sent it to him. He liked it. We signed contracts. He came up with a marketing plan. And back in those days, an agent only sent a manuscript to one editor at a time. And so there was a certain amount of time that had to pass. Now you get an agent, you think, oh, I've got it made now. You know, the agent is going to sell this book and all will be well. And the first 2 agents turned it down. One of them said that this is a beautiful book, beautifully written book that has absolutely no soul. Now, just as a quick aside, I later met her. I always sent thank you letters to editors when they turned me down, and I thought that was a common practice. I met her at a convention, and she said, "Are you James Stoddard?" I said, "Yes." She says, "Thank you so much for that letter. That meant a tremendous amount to me." That was a lesson that I thought was kind of important, that these editors don't get that kind of feedback sometimes. Anyway, so let me find myself here. The third editor, Betsy Mitchell at Warner Books, wanted the book. When Don called me and said, congratulations, we've got a contract. Now, I had mentioned to him that he had asked me, what do you want to write next? And at that time, I thought, well, I hadn't planned on it, but I think I could write a sequel to this book. And so when he called me, he said, congratulations, we've got a deal. It's a 2-book deal. And so you're going to write the sequel. And so that was the first time I ever had to write a book to time, that you have this much time to write a book. And that was more stressful than I would like. Anyway, both of the books were published. The High House came out in paperback. It was picked up by the Science Fiction Book Club, so there is a hardback edition of that. Anyway, yeah, it's beautifully done covers, I thought. The book won the Compton Crook Award, which was given by the Baltimore Science Fiction Convention. It was listed on the Barnes & Noble Best Fantasy Novels. It was nominated for 5 or 6 awards. The one I really would have liked to have won was the Mythopoeic Award, which I think I came in second on that. Some no-name writer by the name of Neil Gaiman won that thing for Stardust, which later became a movie. I really wanted that award because they gave you a statue of Aslan from the Narnia books. So that was disappointing. Anyway, so things were going great guns. There was a producer in New York that wanted to option the book, and so he optioned it for a movie. He tried to make a movie for about 6 or 7 years, and of course I got a little option money during that period of time. The first script that he sent me was awful. I wondered why they had optioned the book. It wasn't anything close to the story. But we kind of worked together, not in me doing any writing, but just me saying, this is kind of what the idea behind the book was. The scripts continued. It eventually ended up in what was called the Warner's Co-op, which was a group of writers working for Warner Brothers. And the guy that, I don't know his name, the guy that wrote the script for the movie Rain Man, did a script for it that I had never seen and I would like to see. But apparently they couldn't get enough backing, and so that deal fell through. But, you know, I made a little money on it, and I got to tell people that story. And so that was kind of fun. Now, when I was going through all of this, I was in what I call the machine, being in the machine. And let me tell you, being in the machine can be a lot of fun. You've got your editors telling you how much she loves the book. Your agent says you're going to be enormously successful. Fans are writing you letters and saying, it's the most wonderful book in the world. I had a tentative agreement with the editor to write a third book in the series. I was working on that, and I did a lot of my writing in the summer. I mean, I wrote while I was teaching, but in the summer I would have several hours in the mornings to teach. I mean, to write. And so I was doing that. It was August, toward the end of the summer. It was my birthday, and I got an email from my agent that said, "Well, the editor contacted me, and whenever you books are sold to bookstores, they can be returned. And so, and basically when they do that, I assume they still do it this way, they tear off the covers of the paperback, and then they send the covers in to the publisher, and the publisher reimburses them for the book. And they said, well, we've looked at our returns, and the book hasn't sold quite as well as we thought, and so we need you to write something else. Now, even my agent was surprised. We sold several thousand copies of the book. He said, we made money, and the publisher made money on this book. He says, I don't really understand this. But when you're in the machine, you have to sell a lot of copies. And there's the bottom line on that. And it did not sell enough copies. And so I was supposed to write something else. Well, maybe the big lesson here is that you should have something else if you're gonna play with the big publishers. And I did not. I came up with a proposal. The editor didn't like it. I decided I didn't do well with proposals, that I needed to at least write the first draft of a book. And so I got an idea for writing an undersea fantasy novel, people living under the ocean, and I tried to make it as realistic as possible. I did a lot of research on the ocean, on the various kinds of fish, and what you would see in the ocean. Anyway, so I wrote it was supposed to be a trilogy. I wrote the first volume, one draft of it, then I went in and polished the first 50 pages, sent it to my agent. I met with him at a convention in Montreal, and now this was in 2002, and my agent lived in Manhattan, and 9/11 was in 2001, and so mostly during that lunch, we talked about 9/11, because he was still in shock. Looking back, I kind of realize that now, that he was still in shock. And so he had also just sold a book for well over 6 figures, I think. And so he was looking for big books. And so for whatever reason, he didn't care for the Undersea novel. I actually think it could have been a really good book. I never finished that draft. I did sell the first chapter later, like in the last 3 or 4 years, as a short story. And I may come back to that if I ever get the time to do it. But that was pretty much, I didn't know it at the time, but that was pretty much the end of my dealings with the big publishing houses. I wrote some other things. At that point, my agent had become a gatekeeper, which should be a sign that you get another agent, but I was naive about that. I tend to be loyal to people. And so I stayed with him far longer than I should have. Anyway, it took me a long time to get to the point where I wanted to self-publish. Growing up, the whole goal was that you write something, you send it to an editor, the editor likes it, the editor publishes it, and anything other than that was just considered a vanity press back in those days. And so it took me a number of years before I finally got to the point where I said, okay, this self-publishing thing seems to be what people do. And so, but going back a little bit, when the High House first came out, Gordon Van Gelder, who was an editor is an editor at the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, came up to me at a convention, and he said, I really like your book. He says, do you ever write short stories? And I said, well, I really don't. And he wandered off. We had a nice conversation. He wandered off, and I slapped myself on the forehead and thought, an editor just asked me for a short story, and I said, no. Again, my marketing genius came out. But I ended up, I thought I need to write a short story and send it to him. And so I wrote a short story based around the High House novel, sent it to him, and that ended up with him publishing 5 or 6 of my short stories. 2 of them were placed in Year's Best anthologies, anyway, that was a tremendous boost to be able to continue to put your name out there and to work with a professional editor. Anyway, since that time, we've self-published. I've had KJ helping me with my promotional stuff in the last year. We came up with, mostly KJ, came up with a cover for the 25th anniversary edition of the High House. I was online one day and I discovered that my book is being called a cult classic. So, anyway, I thought she did beautiful work on the cover, and she's been helping me out. I'll end with one little thing. Years ago when the High House came out, I got a letter, email from a young lady, probably 19, 20 years old, who was from France. Now, the High House was not published in French. It was published in German, Russian, Czechoslovakian, and in Spain. I was enjoying my Czech. But she had read it in English, and she emailed me and she said, would it be okay if I translated your book into French so that my mother could read it? Which I thought was very touching at the time. I wrote her back and said, sure, yeah, knowing that no kid was going to actually spend the time to translate the entire book. But so I got a letter from her last year, and she was surprised that I remembered her. And anyway, she just wrote me and said, your book has meant a lot to me over the years. Anyway, so we've corresponded a couple of times, and it's been very touching to me, to get those kind of emails. And one thing that I always did, whenever fans wrote me, I always wrote them back. And this has resulted in me having friendships. There's one doctor in Maine that I've actually been to his house. We've corresponded for years. Two of the people that wrote me back then have since become editors. On my newsletter that KJ's been helping me do, I actually do a separate newsletter for these people. I call them the Reader Elite. And because some of them, we've had quite a bit of correspondence. And so anyway, that to me, that was one of the smartest marketing things I did. And it wasn't marketing, it was just that I thought that I owed them a letter back. So anyway, that's what I've been doing over the last years.
Well, I'm very happy with Caprock, and I've known him for many years, and I've always loved everything that he's written. It just puts such depth and such emotion into his work, and it's every book that he publishes is award winners. Yeah, some pretty big awards too. And I thought it interesting that one person described him as leading a multi-hyphenated life. I love that because it's true. And he's just done so many things, newspapers, and was managing editor, at these big newspapers in Fort Worth and Amarillo, and but anyway, he's also served as president of the Texas Writers, and he's now the treasurer.
Finally not the treasurer anymore yet.
You're not? Okay, I'm behind.
As of this year, yeah.
I need a spreadsheet to keep up with you.
I know,
Keep up with myself. And now he has embarked on a very different and very interesting aspect of our business. So here he is.
Yeah, I want to start by thanking Linda and KJ and everybody on the board for bringing me in. And honestly, after Mr. Stoddard's presentation, I feel like they got the order wrong, and he should have been headlining, and I should have been in front of this crowd. This is a writing group, and I was talking to right before I came on. They have you done any writing lately? I'm like, a version of writing, but nothing in prose, because Linda was talking about being a multi-hyphenate. That's actually an entertainment industry term, meaning that you do more than one thing and have been recognized as doing more than one thing. And so for me, what I have been telling people whenever they ask me what do you do, I say I'm a writer, actor, producer. Although lately, I think I probably need to switch it to actor, writer, producer, and put the acting first because I've just been doing so much more of that. I am going to try to give you a brief overview of the entertainment business from the written word to what you see in the theater or on your television set or your phone or your tablet or however you consume your visual art. So James gave a pretty good primer for how it starts and what some of the pitfalls can be. But I'm going to start by giving you, as authors, very good news and very bad news. Very good news is that no good film or television program gets made without there first being an excellent story that is well written on pieces of paper. If that does not happen first, then what comes out on the other end is going to be crap. And that's how bad movies and bad television gets made, and we all know it does. We've all watched it and been like, how did that end up on that movie screen or on my television set? It's because there was script trouble, there was a problem with the story, there was a problem with the writing at the very beginning. Usually, that's where that goes wrong. So that's the very good news, is that if you have a really good story and it is written down, then you have something that can be turned into a movie or TV show if that is what you want. And I have yet to meet, I think I maybe did meet one writer who was like, I have no interest in that. Most of the others I talk to say, I would love a Netflix series, like, who wouldn't? So that's the good news. The bad news is that it takes a miracle for anything to get made, and it takes a real miracle for anything good to get made and to be made into a movie and TV show. And of course, everyone's like, but there are so many movies and TV shows that get made every year. Well, that represents a fraction of a percent of the amount of things that people want to get made. And James was talking earlier about how his book got optioned, and there were scripts and scripts and scripts, and to my I assume, James, that no, it never got past that stage. So that is what happens with probably 99% of the stories that are written, especially first in book form, because with the rise of independent publishing, which I'm a huge proponent of, there are so many more stories out there that are in written form, and what you have if you have a book that's published, or even if you have a draft that's written on loose leaf paper, is you have intellectual property. And IP is the basis for most of what gets made nowadays, which, a lot of people lament that in the entertainment industry, but as writers, that's, 2 thumbs up for us. Hollywood has never relied on IP more than it does right now. And, and they rely on IP so much, it's not even just books, it's also Barbie dolls, it is also video games, it is also news articles that get published can be optioned and turned into movies. The movie Hustlers was that way. It started out as, I think, a New Yorker piece. So that's the good and the bad news of being a writer and wanting to get into the entertainment industry. How it goes from that, from your book that you have, to a movie or a TV series. First, your book and your story has to be turned into a screenplay. Most people in the industry call them scripts, it's literally what the people say, and there's action and dialogue and action and dialogue. And you can look up a screenplay format. You can download complete screenplays because those are not sold the same way books are. They're usually free out there on the internet, especially the really good ones. You can probably Google Oppenheimer, screenplay and download it just from Google. Now, it'll be the shooting script because of things. We'll go into all of it, but you'll get a sense for what a screenplay is. James was talking about how the first script he read was God awful and why he didn't option the book. So, that is because sometimes they just want certain aspects of whatever it is you wrote. They love the title and they love the main character and they can care less about the story, but they have to option the book in order to get those 2 things because they're copywritten and they're your intellectual property, so they have to pay you. What you can do, so for those of you who have agents, and a few of you out there do, you should, or hopefully you can ask your agent, do you have a sister agent in Hollywood, or sometimes also in New York, who deals with film and TV. That is how a lot of stuff that is represented gets optioned, which means that you get paid for someone in Hollywood to buy it and produce a script and do whatever they want. If you sell the rights, then they get to take your book and turn it into whatever monstrosity that James read. I'm sure it was awful. So that's how it works if you're agented. If you are not, then there are several ways you can still go about it. One of them is to learn the different format and the slightly different art of writing a screenplay and writing yourself. That gives you the most control, and most people get into self-publishing, independent publishing, to have that control. So you can 1000% do it, and I've talked with a few people, including my own literary manager and some other folks who do that sort of stuff, and they say there's no stigma for an author writing, adapting their own work, because the proof's on the page. If you do a good job with it, you're probably going to do it better than somebody out in LA who does not care about your book. You will always care more about it than anybody else on the planet. That's the nature of being an artist. So if you can, learn that and adapt it yourself. If you don't want to do that, then you can hire writers to do it. They can sometimes work freelance. I have no time right now, but in theory, I might be one of those people who could. So you can get them to adapt it now. There is one big distinction between being able to self-publish a book and have a movie or TV show made in the Hollywood system. That is, not me and my friends going out and shooting a short film, which I've done, and I can talk about that. But if you want it to be something that's theatrically released or put on a major streaming network, which is the more profitable way to do it, obviously, then to publish your own book, and even sometimes to get it published, especially in small presses, because that's the way I've done it, you do not have to have representation. I've never had a formal agreement with a literary agent, despite the books I've published in small presses being not huge awards. Linda alluded to James's awards were much bigger than the ones I've won. But I have never had an agent submit to editors and go through that process like James has. You can absolutely do that in writing novels and books. You cannot do that in the Hollywood system. It has to go through representative, and that's for legal reasons. Because, and I got someone mentioned it, and I'll make it to this later, cautioned me about it, something that I'm working on and developing. People steal concepts in Hollywood all the time. That's how you have Deep Impact and Armageddon coming out the same year. Movies that are almost exactly the same. Volcano and whatever the other one was, it was the same. Because if someone has a great concept, and the concept and the script gets out there, and it's not legally protected, then somebody with legal protection can do their own version of it and absolutely make it. So people who make those type of films and TV shows, they have to receive stuff from a representative for legal reasons, because that is how they establish where something came from that is legally protected that way. So that is one different aspect. Now, you're saying, well, shoot, I don't even really have any literary agent. How on earth am I going to get a Hollywood rep? So if you hire a writer to adapt your story, you should make sure that they have representation themselves, because that's one of the big things they have. If you adapt it yourself and you want to get it made, you have to find a producer who has representation. They can get that made. And that's one of the things that I'm working on now. And I'm going to try not to get too much in the weeds and give you a broad overview and answer specific questions later. But so you team up with somebody who has an in Hollywood. For me right now, it's a literary manager and a co-producer who has an entertainment lawyer. And they also can sell your stuff. And they have firms that specialize in that, so that's what we're working with out there in California. And so you do that, and the next step, your producer or your writer, who may have a producer he likes to work with, the next thing they do is they package it together. And that's an industry term, and I have never been in real estate, but that's the metaphor that gets used a lot. So you're trying to take your story, and by now, it doesn't have to be in script form yet. It can actually just be a version of a proposal called a treatment, which can be one or several pages. It's essentially a synopsis that has several key elements that Hollywood uses to try to pitch themselves, because everybody's always pitching each other the stories. So it can be a pitch document like that. And for television series, it's just a pitch document and a pilot at some point. For a movie script, it can be both. But you're trying to get people attached to that script, to that treatment. And attachment is another like professional real industry term. And what that means is that your script has been written. You have a co-producer, so they're going to try to get a director or a movie star to agree that yes, if this ever gets to the point where it's going to get made, I want to be in it. I am attached. I am. If you're a big enough name, there's formal letters that they write, and it's like part of the package you put together. If it's me, it's just me saying, yeah, you can go ahead. Like I'm currently attached to probably 3 or 4 things. In my various things that I do, whatever people think I'm more valuable as. Right now, I do not as much. Writer, yes. Producer, a little bit. So, but basically, if you can prove and have enough high-quality people attached to that project, which is how everything is, which is what it's called until the final thing, it's all a project. Enough people are attached to that project, then it becomes valuable. And that's a real money, like the actual value of your project can go up. If you get Brad Pitt attached, then all of a sudden this thing is worth a whole lot of money. If you get me attached, it's probably worth, $15 at a sandwich, you know what I mean? So, but you're trying to raise that value. So your producer is going to go out, he's going to try to get a director people know. He's going to try to get a movie star with some kind of recognition or something, or a bigger production company. That happens a lot of time. My production company, Mom City Entertainment, I can go out and try to get, A24, Buffalo A, or, different bigger production companies to say, yes, we would like to throw in and produce this thing. We're going to start working on that. And the more that you get, the more valuable your asset, your project becomes. And at some point, you reach a tipping point where it's like, okay, now we're going to go try to get money to fund this thing. And that happens in 2 ways. The one that we all would like is for one of the major studios to fund your project. And that's your Warner Brothers, Paramount, Sony, all those guys. It's the equivalent of the Big Five in publishing. You're trying to get a major studio out in Hollywood with, virtually unlimited money, big, huge, multinational corporations to fund it. And they will completely fund it. They will give you a budget of anywhere from a couple million to, movies like, the big blockbusters like Oppenheimer and stuff, it's like 150 million is the budget for those. So that's the range you're working with. It can be, on either end of that spectrum. But that's the goal. Now, if that doesn't happen, you can go out and get independent financing. And some of the major production companies like A24, they're top of mind, which I'll get into, but those guys, they have a lot of cash reserve, but they also know a lot of rich people. And some of them live here in the state and are in the oil business. And, they definitely finance films. That's, it's almost a trope now for Texas oil man to be financing a Hollywood film. And so you can go out and get that kind of independent financing. If you're trying to make a really low budget short film or a really low budget feature film, and you're doing it with a small group like in theory I could be doing, I could go out to rich doctors and dentists that I know in town and try to cobble together that money. And if you get enough money, then you can go to a bank and say, we have this money, we need another $200,000 to really make this film, will you loan it to us? Skyrocket, huge interest rates, whatever, but banks do that. If you can prove that you already have a lot of money and you can give them the same proposal you would give to anyone else and say, this is a valuable asset. Look, I've got so-and-so actor and so-and-so director who you've heard of, Mr. Banker. They're going to make this. If we can get this extra $200,000, will you please give me the money? That's how it works. And everyone in the entertainment business is a salesman, and that includes me. That's one of the reasons why I've found a little bit of success is that I can present, I can articulate a vision, and I can get people excited about what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm able to do that. I cannot teach that skill. Some people can. That is one thing I'm able to do. So, and so that, once you get the money, and you get the people to say yes, and you can work out the scheduling, then you can move forward. And that is the stage, the fundraising stage, is where almost everything stops. That is almost surely the reason why James's film didn't get made. They could not get together enough financing, or they couldn't even get enough people to think that they could get the financing. They couldn't package it together well enough. The actor kept falling through with the director, his schedule. If you try to get someone with a lot of heat on, someone who is very popular, they're fielding offers every day from their agents and managers. So if they find something that is more guaranteed to get made, they'll say, hey, I got to go do this thing. Let me know if this thing ever comes to fruition, and we'll see if I'm available. That happens a lot. So that's the step. The packaging and the funding is whatever things fall apart and things do not get made. And that is the hardest part. Unless you have something that is very, very undeniable and it is seen by the right people. And those are the two things that can get you to and past those stages. One, the story and the script just has to be phenomenal. And the pitch has to be phenomenal. But if you have that, and some of you in this room may have that, so far, none of my IP has been optioned, so I probably do not have that. Maybe I do, but you might. But it has to also get in the hands of the right people. And that is a years-long process, most of the time. But let's say you get all that together, you get the funding, and you're going to move forward. Then you move into pre-production, where guess what happens? Your script gets rewritten. It gets rewritten by the director a lot of times because if it's a film, and here's where we'll kind of branch off into film and TV. If it's a film, the director is the dictator. It is his film. He can completely rewrite the script. Now, if it's being funded by a studio or people with literally millions of dollars invested, he kind of has to get their approval. Like he can rewrite the script and give it to them and be like, "Is this okay?" That's because ultimately, if they're financing it, they have the ultimate control. But the director creatively has all of it. So he will rewrite the script. If it's a TV show, then the script and the writers are actually more in control. Television is a writer's medium, so generally what will happen is they will give it to a showrunner, an experienced showrunner, depending on the level of television. If it's going to be on network, it's going to be, your typical types here. It's going to be streaming like a Mike White who does the White Lotus stuff, one of the big showrunners. And they will do their rewrites, and there'll be a room full of writers who are going to write the rest of the episodes, because you've only written the pilot, if that. But they will write it, and they are writers, so in theory, it should be better. Now some directors are fantastic. Christopher Nolan, obviously, people like that. But those are the differences. But whoever it is they put at the top is it ain't going to be you. Not in this room because you are bringing into the business. It ain't going to be me. I'm bringing into the business. So they're going to hire one of those people to take over the project. And they're going to rewrite whatever was previously written. So when you write your script or you hire a writer to do the script, they are making it good enough to get to those stages, which is not all that different if you are going to publish the Big Five. Because as James will tell you, you send in your draft and you get notes from your agent and it goes to the editor. They send and you do a rewrite and it goes to another editor, and there's more work and it gets edited 5 times before you get the final page proofs where stuff gets corrected even more before it publishes. There will be more substantial rewrites to the script in Hollywood, but it's not all that dissimilar. So what you're writing is something that really captures their imagination, makes them see the movie in their head, so that they can go write another movie when they're finally together. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens. And so that's pre-production. They get the script ready. They also hire the crew. Major motion pictures, as I've seen, it might be 150 to 300 people it takes to make a project happen in film. TV, not as many, depending. If it's prestige television that is filmed exactly like a movie, sorry, then it may have that many people on on set, especially if it's on location. Take the show Ozark. That's prestige television. It was filmed. Some of it was on location in the Ozarks. A lot of it was on location in Atlanta, which I found out by talking to people who worked in Atlanta on that show. I figured it was all done in Missouri. It was a lot of it was done in Atlanta. But still, it's on location. It's not all on a soundstage. So that is what pre-production is. You're getting all that lined out, and then you have principal photography, which is where cameras roll. It's where the director yells action and cut. And there are, like I said, there are hundreds of people it takes to make that happen. And so you have principal photography. And you have video and picture is recorded. Sound is done separately. I have held the boom. You all know the boom with the mic that's aimed at people. That's done separately because after principal photography, it goes into post-production, where they take everything that was shot and all the sound, and they cut it, and they literally call it cutting a movie together, into versions of what you will see. So your script has gone from one version to another version, to another version, to another version. While you're in principal photography, the director, whether he wrote it or not, is going to have the actors say different lines, is going to cut scenes, is going to add scenes. And I've seen it I've seen directors all the way from Tyler Perry, who I worked on 2 of his movies, all the way down to literally me and my business partner JR, who directed a short. And then various levels in between. The director on the day, another industry term, which literally means as it's happening, will yell cut and say, let's try this line instead. I want to add this line. Oh, you know what? Instead of blocking it this way, we're gonna have you walk over here instead of over here, which means it takes 30 minutes to remove all the lights, and all the crew members are unhappy with that situation because they have a plan. And the director says, no, we're going to do this other way. So there's another 2 hours of their life that we're going to get back because they set up for one of them move, which you don't think about. And it's not the director's job to think about that. He's thinking about how it's going to look at the end. Because the director is also the person who's going to work with the editor for the next 10 to 30 weeks in post-production, getting that movie put together. And they're going to take everything you shot, and half of it's going to go out the window. And then they're going to have to go to reshoots for the new things that the director thought they got. And it's a weird phenomenon. I've seen it happen with several of the things that I've been a part of intimately. You think you got a shot, you remember it, and somewhere you marked it and crossed it off your list. And it's just not there in the editing room. Either the camera literally wasn't rolling. You did get the sound, which you can fix, depending. You can have the actor come in and do additional dialogue recording. They call it ADR, we call it voiceover. And just record it on a mic, and whatever you see, lips moving and the sound isn't quite matched, that's what happened. They had to come in and dub it later. Because something was messed up with the boom, and the sound didn't get it, or there was too much ambient noise, and they can't clean it up enough, so they have to go into a sound room and just get the audio clean, and the actor is looking and trying to speak along with himself on a looping session, which is weird. I've seen it, never done it, hopefully I never have to do it, but if I stay in this business long enough as an actor, I will. So that's post-production. The Directors Guild of America guarantees now 10 weeks if it's a studio movie where the director gets to, he and his editor work together, he cuts the film together, they call that the director's cut. Sometimes those get released. The Zack Snyder director's cut of Justice League is one example of that. That was what he and his editor came up with. And then they sent it to whoever financed the film. And they want to get their money back, so they need to make sure that it doesn't absolutely suck, that it's not complete trash, that nobody's going to watch, and it's going to lose a lot of money. Most films lose money. Most films lose money. Just like most books do not sell 1 million copies. The odds are pretty much the same there. Both industries rely on a publisher, not independent publishing, but a publisher and a studio rely on the same business model, have 1 or 2 or 3 things a year, sell like gangbusters so they can finance the rest of the stuff that doesn't. Now in the film industry, your blockbusters, gross, not net, but they gross hundreds of millions or millions of dollars. The book industry, that is not the case. But they publish more books, so that's how it works out. But anyway, so they send it to the financiers, and the financiers say, okay, so I don't know what's going on for these 20 minutes. It's absolutely garbage. Get rid of it. and lots of notes. And so then the director and the editor have to do their best to accommodate, and this is where compromise happens. They have to accommodate the studio while also not completely ruining their film, because the director has been with it since packaging, or really since pre-production, which can last a few months, all the way to principal photography, which on a major film lasts a few months. And now he's in post, and he's already got his own 10 weeks. And now he's finally sending it on to the studio, so he's invested in this thing. So there's compromise, and then you get to where, okay, we think it's good enough. Now, what does an audience think? So they do a screening out in the San Fernando Valley somewhere on a random Wednesday to give people a free movie and sometimes literally dinner, and they watch it and they rate it. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And people rate it excellent, very good, not great, and bad, basically. And what you want is between 60 to 80% people in the top 2 boxes, excellent or very good. If you get that, then you clean it up a little bit, and how soon can we put this in theaters? If not, then everybody goes back to the drawing board. The people who are watching it get to give their own notes. And by the way, notes is an industry term. That is suggestions, thoughts, edit, what we would call an edit, developmental edit. That's giving notes. So the audience members give their notes, and they're writing down. And so they look through, the studio and the director and the editor look through separately at the meeting. And I say, okay, everyone agrees that this opening sucks. So let's shoot a new opening. Or if they say, we're not putting any more money into this, they start the story somewhere else. And as writers, we all know about starting the story somewhere else. So they do that in film too. And then eventually one of 2 things happens. They say, okay, we've got it fixed. We're going to release it, either streaming only, what they used to call like video on demand. Now it's, they stream it, release it in theaters in a few cities, see how it goes. Or they say this thing is going to be huge. They release it to 2,000 theaters. It releases all the way in a little border, Texas, the closest theater I have grown up, that has 6 screens and only gets the major blockbusters. Or what they do is they say, this thing's not fixable. And one thing about the film industry is everything that somebody invested is a tax write-off. And like from the moment they invest it, most of it is a tax write-off anyway. So to them, they want to make a return, but if they don't think they can. And this happened with the movie Backdoor that Warner Brothers did. It was going to be released in theaters. Then it was going to be released on Max. And then eventually they just didn't release it all. They said, no, things never going to work. Things never going to work. People are not going to like it. So it never released anywhere. It was just a tax write-off for the studio and the financiers. And so sometimes you can have a movie shot, edited, and ready to go, and it still does not get released anywhere. Nobody's ever going to see if the people worked on it, unless somebody steals it and puts it on the dark web, which has probably happened. But I don't even know how to use the dark web, so no. But anyway, so that is a very broad overview of how it works. Now, how do I know all this? I have published novels, and so I know about IP and IP law. I don't have a literary agent, so I don't have a sister agent for writing. But one of my publishers does have a subsidiary rights agency who they say is actively trying to shop all over the stuff for film, TV, and audio, and foreign language, and all that stuff. So, that would be nice if that happens. I'm going to count that as found money, email lost money, and other practice, with the exception of film or TV. That would be involved in, obviously. For my screenplay writing, I do have what they call a literary manager. And she actually is in New York and not LA, but either one of those two, because she also does a lot of work with plays. So writing is writing in terms of drama versus prose. So she represents most. She lives in New York, and she we have what's called a hip pocket deal, which means that she knows about me, she has my stuff, I send her my stuff, and if she meets somebody who is interested in what I have, then they're going to talk about it, bring me to meetings. Now, she's already helped me out in one respect, in how I know so much about development, is she had to be able to produce in Fort Worth and fill guitar as the instrument. That's really his last name. Red Axis Productions is his company, and they do kind of short films, but also documentaries. And so she said, hey, you two just need to talk. And I'm not even going to take a commission. She was very nice about it. Because, neither one of us had projects that she could take to major players that make a lot of money at the time. So she said, you two talk. And so she hooked us up, and I sent him a TV series, a limited series, which miniseries is what you used to call them, based on a true story. And he said, hey, it's a lot easier, it costs a lot less money to make a documentary. Why don't we try that? So we pivoted. And so we are currently developing that. And it has been at least 9 or 10 months, and we are still working on, writing is actually writing episodes that we would do for a docu-series. So think Tiger King and the Jinx and stuff like that. And so we had it all planned out. We did a pitch deck, which is a slideshow, and we sent it to his entertainment lawyer in Hollywood, and it's the firm's VP of packaging, remember that term, and sales, selling it to a studio. And so he gave his notes, and so we're getting our ducks in a row. We're gonna send it back to him and see what notes he has, and we're gonna work together to get a new, better pitch. And then he is going to try to package it. He's going to go out to the biggest documentarians in the game right now, and other people, maybe some actors who can play and do reenactments, because we think that might be part of it. I never insert myself into it. I have screen experience now and on-camera experience, so I'm going to be one of the people being talked to, because a lot of it's based on some reporting I did in 4 careers ago when I was a journalist. So, and so we're developing that. So it started out as a scripted limited series, and now we're trying to sell it to like a Netflix or HBO as like a 4-episode docu-series where I'm going to be the main character. So that's how crazy over a year a project can turn into one thing or another. I would also be on as a producer, and I'll get money for being a creator, definitely. The origin, the idea was me, 100%, so I get that credit with a fee. If I'm a producer, I get a percentage of the overall budget. So I gave you the range before. We're looking at $5 million, so I would get whatever percentage of that would go to me, my company, and Philip would get a small percentage too. You'd probably be like, hey, producers get 3% of this $5 million, and then we can split it equally or however that works. So that's how we would earn money there. I would probably earn some kind of money for being on camera and that sort of thing. So that is how I know a lot about that development process. How do I know about the pre-production and production? Because of my acting. So I have been a lead in shorts, short films, which are under 40 minutes, but realistically most are anywhere from 3 to 15. So I've been lead, speaking parts, acting in short films. I have been supporting or featured background in larger indie projects. One was a Western where I was a supporting role. And speaking of things changing, shot it as a film, had a lot, took it out. The creator, the director got a shocking agreement, which is another thing with an entertainment lawyer, which means the lawyer's paying him and agreeing to take a cut of whatever profits, and he gets X amount of time, and I'm not privy to that specific information, and the lawyer has that amount of time to sell to, they work with stars a lot, some of the other streamers like your HBOs and Showtime. So he has X amount of time to sell to them, but he doesn't want to sell it as a film, as a movie. He wants to sell it as a miniseries, limited series. And there's enough footage that the director has been cutting it up into several episodes. And so it's a pilot presentation that the entertainment lawyer is not taking out to, to all the streamers and stuff. So that's another way you can get made. So anyway, I was a supporting role in that. I was the comic relief. I played an 1860s cowboy, a villain, part of the outlaw posse. So I grew like crazy, solid belly, facial hair. It was great. And then on major productions, I have been background and featured background, which means I don't have any speaking lines, but if you're featured, which I've been, you interact with the cast. And so on the first Tyler Perry movie I did called Joe's College Road Trip, I'm probably not even going to be in it. Like, they way overbooked it, and they did takes of the same scene that they were sending exact a couple of times. So if I'm lucky, my take gets used probably. Then the second Tyler Perry movie I did is called Joy Ridge, and it's on IMDb preliminarily. And none of this has come out yet, by the way. This has all happened in the last 9 months, so it's going to be a year before I really see much of any of this on screen. But for Joy Ridge, I was not a background actor. Well, I did one scene in the background, but I was in the middle of a crowd, so I'll know me maybe if I can see me. But I was also what's called a stand-in, which means I looked enough like one of the principal actors to stand where he was going to stand. And remember, I talked about how there's people working on the lighting and the camera crew with the framing. So I'm there to stand and be where he's going to be and maybe do a gesture to the real actor will do so they can get the framing and make sure the lights are. My hair and my skin tone and my height, and my width kind of matched this guy, this actor. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but looked enough like him that they used me to get the frame, and I was what they call second team. And then, so they do second team out, and they do the first team in, those are the movie stars, and then they shoot the scene. And the second team is more a part of the crew than the actors, which they call the talent. But you're treated almost as good as the talent. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to play to pretend you're a movie star. I will not gaslight you and lie about that. I'm a home guy, but it's really fun. The other thing I did was photo doubling on Joy Ridge, and that I will be on camera. But what I did is they were getting establishing spots in Colorado in the mountains, and a lot of it was driving. Cars driving, on the roads into this little town called Uray, which is actually near where I grew up. But I sat in the passenger seat, and they had a Teamster driving, because almost everybody on the set but me is in a union. And we were driving around, and they had a camera mounted to a boom, which is like a little crane arm, mounted on top of this Porsche Cayenne that was driving behind us, beside us, in front of us, and capturing the car driving, for establishing shots. And so they needed somebody who would like this guy to be sitting in the driver's seat, so that whenever somebody is watching the movie for that half a second, they can see that there's somebody in that seat who looks enough like that guy to where when they cut to later him getting out of the SUV, they're not like, well, there wasn't anybody sitting there before. Where'd he come from? So that was my job. And you get paid a lot more than just a regular background actor. You're not getting actor money, movie star money, but you're not getting the lowest paid. So that was nice. That's what I did on that Tyler Perry movie. And then lately, I've been on a film called Eddington, which is being done by A24, who I mentioned earlier. Technically, they are an independent film producer, but they're one of the best in the world. They did not this year's Oscar winner, but last year's everything, all the things in the world. Once I can't remember the actual title, but you know the one. And they've also done Midsummer, Hereditary, and that kind of stuff. And I bring up those two films because the director of this movie is Ari Aster, who did Hereditary, which was nominated for Best Picture, and Midsummer, which was not, but which starred Florence Pugh kind of before she became the A-lister she is now. And that's my favorite of his two movies, so this will be his third film. So in this case, he's not the big name. Like Tyler Perry, you don't know who he is, but he was directing these movies. And he actually was also a star in Joe's College Road. He was playing the grandfather. So in this one, Ari Aster is not the name, but I have so far worked alongside and been in frame with and interacted with Joaquin Phoenix twice in 2 different scenes. I played 2 different roles, and Pedro Pascal. And so that has been super fun. They are both just as good looking in person as they are on TV. And what's interesting is Mr. Perry and the main actors I just did, when they're on set, they're working. And so they tell you, well, they told us with Tyler Perry, do not go up and ask for a selfie or an autograph, or we will kick your ass off the set. Right then and there, no questions asked, you do not get paid, get out. We will escort you if needed. So don't do that. They did not say that with the other guys, but I think they mostly brought in background actors, and probably some of whom, like me, had done acting and smaller stuff, and they are, at this point, I had made more money on my acting this year alone already than I made from my books probably in the past 3 years. So I'm not going to call it easy money, but it's the money that's come the easiest to me, because I am able to do this thing. So, but everybody's working. I'm actually working. I am not gawking at the movie stars. I'm interacting with them as an actor, and we're all focused on doing the thing. But then in the parking lot after Thursday, whenever I was on set, some of us background were hanging out, waiting to catch our van from the parking lot to catering, so we could go eat and get checked out and get out of here. And then, separately, the two, Joaquin Phoenix and Pedro Pascal were being driven up, and they saw us, and they maybe recognized us, maybe didn't, who knows. But they definitely turned to us and told the drivers to slow down, and they waved and gave us, their literal movie star smiles. And so, whenever they were off the clock, it was very nice, and they acknowledged. But yeah, whenever, there was no extraneous chit-chatting or selfie-taking. If you're on set working, you're on set and working. And so that's one of the complications of trying to be an actor on a major movie set, is not being a dumbass, not being that guy, and being professional. And if you do a good enough job, you get asked back. So you can follow casting companies on social media, and they'll say, hey, if you're interested in being an extra, send us this information if you're available. And if you're available is a big one. Because, it's random Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and if you have a 9-to-5 job, that's not what you're going to be able to do. So it's the availability. And if you do it enough, and production says, yeah, we'll have that guy back, now I get invites from those casting directors saying, hey, you've done a good job for us before, will you come be in these scenes? And like I said, I was invited to come back and be in different scenes for this same movie. This will be my second round of scenes. I'm going back on Monday and Tuesday to finish out those scenes because it's a big party scene, and apparently it takes place over a long period of time for your little film in one day. And then also, one thing that's nice, I mentioned I had a literary manager. I was getting enough work, and the reason I'm sitting here today is probably because Linda and people saw me posting on social media about these movie sets, as much as I can tell you about. So an agent in Amarillo, Anderson Town, Charlotte, Anderson, you may not know, reached out and said, okay, so reading between the lines, I can probably make money off of you because she can negotiate for 15% or whatever somebody's going to pay me. I would like to represent you and try to get you more work, especially there's some stuff that's going to come to this area. A new season of Yellowstone, the newest Yellowstone 2024, all kinds of, she knew about these projects that were coming, so she's going to be my agent, try to get me hooked on that stuff locally, so I'm not always driving to New Mexico and Colorado. I was able to get the work initially because I was trying to get my writing produced. And you meet with people, you meet with producers and directors, and they thought that I had what it takes, and I have a specific look. I'm a specifically big cowboy, handsome enough guy, to be on camera. And like some actors, if they're big, and obviously they're gonna have more muscle. They're gonna have more muscle than fat, and which I'm working on. But I'm light enough and tall enough because most people work in the entertainment industry, and I don't know if it's just because they live on the coast or what, but they're lots smaller than I am, and I like short. So when I walk onto a set, it's obvious I'm an actor because I really am bigger than most everybody there. So and Mr. Phoenix and Mr. Pascal are not necessarily really big guys. In fact, Pedro Pascal's so thin I couldn't believe it. He is really thin. He's pretty tall. Anyway, so I'm a specific type. So, and a specific type that casting directors can look for, because I'm like the size of a real person, right? I'm not Hollywood anorexic, you know what I mean? So I'm a real American, and I look, even though I didn't grow up. I grew up for a time on a ranch in a farm, but I have a Western type look. So this thing I'm doing now, I'm dressed in modern, a Western party attire. So I have a blazer and a collared shirt, but I'm in jeans and my boots, and they gave me a cowboy hat. So there's a look, and I have an expressive face. I can look how I want to look, and I obviously my voice projects. I have things that these people saw that I never saw. I never thought, acting is never an ambition, but if you meet with people in the entertainment industry, they know the people who are actors to say, you could act. And so you do a line reading or they just talk to you and they're like, yeah, I can use you. So I got cast in They Call Me Marshall, which was the movie that's being shot as a TV series. I thought that was super fun. Being on that set was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I also worked on the film crew because I wanted to learn that and gain that experience. So I held the boom, I did the slate a couple times, I hauled stuff around because, I'm a pretty strong guy, so, I was a grip, they call it, because you're grabbing stuff in the rain. And then I was like, okay, so let's see if I can get some other stuff. And so I was casting a friend's short film that they wanted to do. And because I knew enough about the business, I also was a producer. And then we formed a production company that we also used to publish, that thing I'm going to talk about later, and her book, because she also writes for us, so we're going to publish her book through that same company. It's called Long City Entertainment, and I fought for entertainment because books are entertainment, movies are entertainment, documentaries are entertainment, all that stuff. And so I did their short films, and people really liked what I did, so more positive feedback. So then I kind of randomly came across, because I was looking up acting, and so social media fed me some casting calls from casting directors looking for background stuff on major stuff. So I was the first time I've heard it. And it was so much fun. If you enjoy creative energy, like that gets me jazzed, and excited. And so being on that first major movie set, now I understand why people in their 20s move to LA and pursue this to the point of being broke and starving and, all that stuff. Because it's the most fun I've ever had. A day on a movie set is better than almost any other day I've ever had. Especially a big movie set. So then I did that. Charlie Bergman. They liked me. I got to know they had a casting rep on set, which is not always the case, but they did. So when they were going to Colorado a month later, I literally got a call from the casting director. They didn't put it out publicly. I got a call and said, hey, would you like to be an extra in this thing? Oh yeah. Are you available? I work from home editing books and, doing whatever I do to earn money, so I'm always available. Just give me enough time to drive there. Just make sure I live X hours away, so if you call me X hours and 10 minutes, I can be on the road and I'll be there. And so then I said that. Called me the next day, hey, you're one of the best extras for what they call being a stand-in. Do you know what that is? No? That's fine, just get to set. Can you be there tomorrow morning? So I drove all the way through the night to Colorado. Took a nap at a gas station 10 minutes away from set before I had to be there. But when I got there, I was awake. Like I said, the creative energy. Literally hundreds of people, 20 semis, or people are setting stuff up, They're getting this arm car ready, the thing I talked about, the camera with the boom on top of the Porsche. Never seen that, so what the, And so then I did that. I spent, I think, 5 of 7 days while they were in Colorado working on that project, because then they caravanned everybody back to Atlanta and shot in Tyler Perry's gigantic studio. But they had to get all the outdoor establishing shots saying, look, we're in Colorado. They had to literally be in Colorado. So I did all that, and that was awesome. And while I was on the first Tyler Perry movie, I talked to a guy who was a veteran with New Mexico. He's in Albuquerque. They also have those studios. In fact, Netflix just built their own version of it last year. So there's a Netflix studios and just Albuquerque studios. I don't know what the name is, that everybody rents and uses. So he said, here, these are the 5 people in New Mexico that pretty much book background talent, and a director can always give me a line, in which case I'll have to join the union, and I'm not ready for that, but that would be cool too, But, so you follow them, and, I got on to Eddington the first time. And then I got actually several invites to come back. The first one I applied for, I didn't get it, but then this one, they texted me and said, hey, can you be at a fitting later this afternoon? Which they also did the first time, because Ari Aster is an art director, right? He's an auteur. Tyler Perry makes, he's like the mass market paperback version of a director. He makes 14 shows and 30 movies a year or some nonsense. It's insane. Ari Aster does a movie every 5 years. So every extra gets approved by several rounds of wardrobe. And so you go in for a fitting the day before if you can, and I always can, They wanted me there in 2 hours, I said, yeah, you before. And so I got in there, I picked up and drove down there. Wore most of my own clothes, because like I said, I'm a specific type, so I had clothes that fit me, because I just have a strange body type, Even the way I look in clothes, it's weirder for me to get fitted for clothes. I just have a specific body. So most of the stuff I wear is online, and I have clothes that fit me, and I look pretty good on my clothes whenever I clean up all right. So most of the clothes I've worn have been mine, and I get approval, and then on the day, which is also a film term, it means right now. So on the day, it could be 2 minutes from now. It's when cameras are going to roll, or when this thing is going to happen. So whenever they're going to approve me, final approval for wardrobe, the head costumist, the head wardrobe person, costumer, comes by, and she's this tall, elegant French woman, and it is, you know, it's really cool. And she looks, I really like that. Like other people, she's saying, I'll put a tie on him, you know, he needs a different jacket. But yeah, I was good. And so then her little assistant comes by and gets my name. So I'm like, that's kind of cool. So we get to set, and they choose me to be one of the people who, I can't give away a lot of details, I really can't, I might to, but Joaquin Phoenix, you know, like brushes by me in a huff. And so people were in COVID masks. This takes place during COVID. You really can't divulge that. I really might to. But they chose me. They liked my look enough to where I didn't have to wear a mask. So I was, you know, drinking a beer whenever that happens. That's my excuse when I have my mask. And so there were a few of us that were chosen, that kind of stuff. But part of that's because, you know, they recognized me, they knew me, they invited me back, so they liked to be professional. And I wasn't there in the middle of taking, oh my gosh, you know, and I'd already worked with him on the scene. So there was that, and so yeah, that is, that's kind of my acting route that I've taken. And so my favorite story so far from all of these is, and it's not something that happened while cameras were rolling, and I was kind of done with my part. In the first scene that I worked, it was Mr. Phoenix and Luke Grimes, who plays Casey Dutton on Yellowstone. And so it was a news conference, and I was chosen for that, I'm sure partially because I was a member of the working media for 10 years, and I was the only person there who did not need any notes and had to act like I was in the news conference. You know, because I've been to hundreds of them. And so they didn't need me for that. And so we were all hanging out over here, but you know, relatively close, say, from me to the back row, to where first team, Joaquin Phoenix and Casey Dutton, the other guy, that's his character name, Luke Grimes, were working. But Luke Grimes wasn't there. You know, whenever they brought first team in, which means we are ready to roll cameras in 10 seconds. Let's do this thing. And so it's maybe 1 or 2 minutes coming around, and you see Luke Grimes walk up, and as he's walking up, Joaquin Phoenix starts. Ladies and gentlemen, Luke Grimes finally gracing us with his presence on set. Everyone starts laughing. So I got to watch Joaquin Phoenix, one of the greatest actors of the generation, I think most people would say, give Casey Dutton shit for being late to set. And so, like, you know, that's kind of cool. That's I'm probably going to tell that story every time I do something like this, because you only get that experience if you're on set. Another interesting note, Joaquin Phoenix, you all kind of know what he sounds like if you watched the movie Her, or you know, just when he's not like portraying like a real person or someone other than like himself. But in this case, he has a southwestern accent that's takes place in New Mexico in the story, in addition to real life. And so it's kind of a Texas southwestern sort of and so he said that, what I just said, in character, in that accent. He didn't break, like he broke character, so he wasn't Heath Ledger, maybe he was a beast, but he didn't break voice and all that stuff. Around town, people say that he goes to laundromats and does his own laundry because he wants to know he's playing a character, which I won't say, but like he's living that life day to day. Now, between takes, he and Ari Aster, the director, will talk about craft and notes, and I mean, he's not out of his mind or anything like that. But he did ask Pedro Pascal to really slap him for a scene. They even had a stunt double come in to take the slap. Joaquin Phoenix wanted to take it, and then he asked for Pedro Pascal to slap him harder, and then harder yet. And so they did 6 or 7 takes, and so by the end, some were brought over ice for Joaquin Phoenix to put on his face. Because he really wanted to take that slap, and he had to go Pedro Pascal and slap him harder to make it more real. So he's method in that respect, but he's not fully great. I can say that. So yeah, I've rambled on for a while now. It's about 20 minutes of noon. You guys have a hard out? Do you have to be out here at noon, or do you kind of?
They're real nice about it.
So I can take questions if you'd like, or if you don't have questions, You know, I got some stuff that you guys can buy and have me sign, but it's kind of whatever y'all want. Or we can take a break and you can get a snack and go to the bathroom and then come back. I'll leave it to the board to tell us what all to do.
But let's do questions. Anybody got some questions for him?
Yes, I have a question. I've been wanting to know this. Why did Taylor Sheridan, he got Yellowstone, he got 1883, he got 1923, or whatever that was, and he dropped them all?
So he
Just left us hanging.
So I only know what I've read in the press, and actually a little bit of what I've heard, because I worked with some of the crew members and background actors who worked on that kind of stuff. So a little bit of inside information, but for Yellowstone proper, Kevin Costner, he's not really a TV actor, so he was like, I've been doing this enough years, I've got my movies to go make, so he wanted to go to his movies. And there was also, but Taylor Sheridan says, no, we gotta make our show. What are you doing? So there was conflict there. I'm sure that Kevin Costner said, okay, if you pay me twice as much as you pay me, I'll come back and finish the season. And I'm sure Taylor Sheridan was like, no, Paramount's not going to quite do that. So there was that kind of stuff going on. That's for Yellowstone specifically. The rest of it is on the reporter. I read a profile he did, and basically he agreed to do a million shows so that Paramount would pay him $200 million so he could buy 4 seasons. Including the patch of land that's 20 minutes from my hometown, from Stinnett, up there, like the Dixon Creek area of Manchester County. I drive by the building where they filmed the barn of 4 seasons that's in Yellowstone. I drive past that a couple times a month, probably, or maybe not anymore. I used to drive by a couple times a month before I had it all the time. But yeah, he said, I did a little bit of, selling my soul so that they would pay me $200 million overall deal to make a ton of shows, and probably some movies, so that I could invest almost every last nickel of that in buying 4 6s. Now, he's going to make a lot of that back as the showrunner because he does not have to rent any locations. For any westerns, he just has to use his own private land, which is totally acceptable. I'm sure he has to pay more insurance, but still not as much as renting out someone's ranch or cabin or whatever your location is. Because very rarely does somebody donate that unless you're, me and my company trying to film. People donate their stuff, locations for that, but if you're Paramount, they're going to ask you to pay quite a bit of money if you want to use my cabin for 3 days to shoot your, scenes or whatever. So that is kind of what happened there. He did a lot of that for the money, and so when you do it just for the money, sometimes the creative burns out. Well, they're supposed to, and I know this partially because of my agent who knows, and partially from news reports, and partially because, like I said, I drive by the location all the time. I believe later this month they're going to start shooting the final 5 episodes of Yellowstone. And Kevin Costner has said, hey, I'm actually between, I wrapped up on the first of my 3 movies. I have some time. Want me to come back and actually be on camera a couple times to wrap up my storyline? And I think they're trying to work out a deal where they can pay him to come do that. So I think everybody kind of wants not to have, the audience hate them. Because, Yellowstone was, it's the biggest show in the history of cable television. So they want to do some fan service. But yeah, that's what happens there. And, Hollywood is about the money. Everybody wants to make a profit. And I know from personal experience now that there's so much money in that stuff. A few authors a year make the kind of money that if I get one speaking line in a movie that big, I will make that much money than I would have probably ever made from my books. So that's just kind of the nature of Hollywood. It is all about the money. Everyone's a salesman. So that's a very different vibe. Yeah.
It sounds like right now you're just trying to see how this is going to go, where it's going to go. I'm curious about what may be your long-term goal. I know you don't know right now. But.
For sure. Like I said earlier, it's depending on what you call easy, and depending on what you call how much you work. Is acting on set is wait and hurry up. It's not even hurry up, wait. It is wait and hurry up. You wait around on set for 8 to 10 hours a day. A lot of times you get paid time and a half after 8 hours. But if you work less than 8 hours, you still get a flat fee. You still get whatever you were promised, which is great. So that's great. If you count actual time working with cameras rolling or even during rehearsals where they're blocking, an 8-hour day can maybe be 2 hours of actual work. And so if you divide that by how much I make whenever I go to this stuff, then it's the most money I've ever made for the work. And I'm not even really having to seek it out anymore. Like I said, I'm being offered stuff and having people working to get me on the camera. I never got that with my books. I've not really gotten that with my script writing, just a little bit, the one thing I told you about. So at this point, I'm going to not fight what's coming to me. And so I'm going to take all the acting work I can get and see where that leads me. But the bottom line is I'm getting on these movie sets. I'm talking with people. And networking is priority number one name of the game in the entertainment industry. Not that it isn't in books too, but it is the one thing that you have to do and have to do well if you want to do anything in the entertainment industry. And I apparently can schmooze. Like, apparently it's a skill I have. So I'm just going to keep getting on movie sets and keep acting. It can be more lucrative. The only thing that's more lucrative than be directing and producing. No interest in directing. I would weigh 500 pounds from stress eating and I'd have a heart attack at 40, and I'm only 38. So, you know what I mean? So I don't want to direct. But producing is also very lucrative. And I've done some of that on short films. See if we can sell any more short films, the ones we've left time on making. If we sell a documentary, I'll let you do the math, but say 1% of 5 million, that when it comes to me and my business partner. So there's the money in that. So yeah, like I said, I still in my heart identify as a writer, but so like I said, you should have been the headliner with this crowd because you all are writers, and even that's recycled from High Friends Writers Anthologies, those short stories. So, but yeah, I'm gonna quit. I'm going to take the easy stuff that's coming to me. I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit. And is that selling out? Sure it is. Am I embarrassed about it? Not at all. Because like I said, there are very few things as fun and as exhilarating as being on a major movie set, and there are very, very few things like being treated as the actor on a major movie set, even the background actors, depending on the production. A24, not as generous as Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry Studios, I was doing standing in the level, so I was not quite an extra, I was in a little bit of a class above, but being treated movie star adjacent, so fun life. So I'm not turning it down.
The pay must have changed with inflation in the years. I was in Real Stories of the Highway Patrol and Touch by an Angel and different stuff. That's 20 years ago, but they didn't pay hardly anything.
So yeah, it's like I said, the photo double and the standing work was about 3 times what I made in the background. And because the casting and the productions like me, second time around I get, I might get a travel benefit that the other extras don't get, or they use my car as what they call a picture car, which means it's going to be on in the picture in a parking lot. So I got that's about a third of what I made from my base rate. And we get paid time and a half over 8 hours. Usually they keep it right at 8. They make sure to release you at 8, but I've had a couple of paychecks where I got time and a half for a couple hours. So, it's not, the straight background work, no, I'm not going to get rich off that. But for a couple of the indies I did, I got paid 4 figures for the Western. But like I said, that was a speaking role. I'm a profit participant in another indie. I'm actually a partner in the LLC, so I got what I got paid, which is not amazing. And I did some PA work too, so I got paid as a PA. I paid a little bit as a featured background. It was a monster. It was pretty cool. But I'll tell you, that was the most work I've ever done. Because it's 30 minutes to get in and out of that thing, and standing still for long periods of time. So my knees hurt. And then, I also did a short film that's going to be released first as a public service announcement, but it was filmed as a short film. That's the first thing my agent got me. That was week before last. For those of you who follow me on social media, that was the stuff with the SWAT team and all that business. It was a night shoot, so we got paid a little more for that. And it was being financed by a nonprofit, so a little more than a private company paying for it. I don't think I'm going to get a buyout clause, which would give me more money if it does, say, they put it on NBC one night, or something like that. The bigger actors get okay, so if that happens, we're going to pay you the full $10,000, but you don't get any royalties, or what they call residuals in the film and TV industry. I don't think I'm going to get that, but something like that. That's for my agent to work out, which is nice. She's there to because the more money she makes on my behalf, the more money she makes in her pocket, because she gets a percentage of what I mean, just like a literary agent would. But you're right, I'm not going to get rich just doing background work. But I've had some opportunities to come up where I make a little more than the standard background actor because, I mean, I guess I'm good. Like I don't know how you know, it sounds you know, like I'm patting myself on the back, but you know, at some point you get enough feedback to realize that's what's happening. So I'm very lucky, very blessed. I won't pretend that's not.
I love how the humanities help us all grow as writers too, right? No matter what you're doing, you can parlay that into additional material or thoughts or perceptions.
For sure. And honestly, what I found, one of the reasons why I probably have some skills as an actor is because I've had to keep my feelings close to the surface to be a writer, and I've had to be able to empathize with people. And most writers I know, when they're writing scenes, they do acting out, or they at least have a physiological reaction. They feel the way their characters feel. They might start sweating. I definitely get like wide-eyed whenever I'm writing crazy, you know, like thrilling scene. So I do that naturally, and I know how to tell a story, and so I'm just telling the story in a different way whenever I am on camera. And what's nice is even this last one where I am super in frame should be at least moderately in focus as you know, Joaquin Phoenix is approaching and walking by, and like, you know, I don't have any lines, obviously, you know, but you know, I could definitely, like, you know, he was having an emotional reaction based on his character, and so we were able to, you know, react to that very naturally, and you know, being present in the moment is a part of it. And as writers, we should be, I hope you all are present in the moment as you're writing your drafts. Maybe not editing, but as you're writing your first drafts, you should be. And so yeah, that's. I'm glad I've been able to find a way to take that skill and translate it to this new opportunity that I have. Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of us in the room are looking to get Netflix deals and all this kind of thing. Do you have any advice perhaps?
The best thing, the first thing you need to do is to learn how to write what's called a log. And, you know, in books they oftentimes call it the elevator pitch, but it's probably even shorter than what you're thinking an elevator pitch should be. It is one sentence if you can do it, 2 short sentences if you absolutely need it, and you can use commas and dashes, and I mean, you know, it's, you know, use your writing talents, but, you know, like, you know, 75 words or less, you know, 4 short. And it has to describe a few things. Who's your main character? Not by name, unless you're writing historical, you know, unless it's a biopic of some kind. But, well, you know, a few words to describe your character is, you know, just in general. What do they want? What is stopping them from getting that thing? What's the obstacle? And what happens if they do not reach their goal? What are the stakes? And encompassing those 4 things, and you have to do it in one sentence where you just say to somebody. And if you can't do that, then 1 or 2 things are happening. 1, it is hard to write your own log line, so get a friend to try to do it for you. You know, or 2, you might not have as clear and as good a story as you think. And it sucks to hear that, especially if it's like already published. But if you can't write a good log line, or if somebody else can't do it for you, like I actually do it as part of, you know, my editing consulting that I do for authors and screenwriters. But if you can't write a good log line, then your story concept and your main character and the conflict and the stakes and your villain are not clear enough, you know, like, you know, there's story work to be done. So learning how to write a good log line is imperative in the film industry and TV industry for 2 reasons. 1, making sure that you have a clear story. You know, even if you have 6 timelines and 15 points of view, you have to have one main character, and they have to have a goal, they have to have an obstacle, and there has to be stakes if they do not get that goal. And they can be very personal, emotional stakes. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. I write stories where sometimes it's the end of the world. But if you're writing a drama or a rom-com, it can be not getting asked the prom. You know what I mean? If it's young adult. So that's still the stakes. And you have to make it exciting, punchy language, which, you know, that's the actual writing of the log line, the language. I won't get into it because we're all professional writers here, so, you know, we all know what to do there. But one, it makes sure your story is where it needs to be. Two, the log line is where every pitch in Hollywood starts. If you want to get a literary manager, you're going to email them, hi, I think, I have gold here. Not really, but you could be a little less formal with it. Because Hollywood's a very relatively new industry. People are relatively younger, relatively hipper than, the industry that started in New York in the 1700s, right? So, and you can say either go log line, colon, log line, or the next sentence is the log line. And then the other thing usually are comparable titles, which we all do kind of for query letters or books. And sometimes even for books you use movies and TV because they're more in the zeitgeist. Definitely do that. And it's, log line, think, X meets Y, and then maybe a little bit about yourself, or, I've had 3 shorts produced, and this is my first feature, something like that. But so, but that log line is what they're looking at. And if they don't love that log line, if it's not high concept, which is also a term in books and movies share that. If it's not high concept, if they don't read that log line, and they can't immediately get a feel and kind of see what that movie's about, then you're not going to get their attention, and you're not going to get that representation. You're not going to get that writer to agree to adapt your book. Because, it would be the same thing. If somebody wanted me to do that, I had any time, they email, and I've gotten a few of these. I have to tell them, I don't know if you check my social media. I'm on set, 2 weeks a month now, pretty much, or traveling on set. But, it's the log line. And I've had a few who reached out to me, and I love their log line and their pitch. And I said, yeah, send me more. And so a couple of authors, whenever I said I was attached to things, I'm like, yeah, go ahead and attach me. And one of them is attaching me as a producer and an actor, and another one just as a producer. Like, yeah, if you find somebody who's going to make this, I will work on the script with you, and I will try to, get this thing happening because I love the story that much. And that's what it is. And they got me with that, with that one sentence, with that log line. And so that's how it happens in Hollywood. If you nail a log line, the rest of it can start falling into place. Now, that being said, your log line better be what your story actually is. Don't gaslight people, don't bait and switch. And you might have a great log line and somebody reads your script or book, and they might go, so I feel like the story doesn't match very closely or close enough to your log line. Can you change your story to match that awesome log line? Because that log line is literally what's going to get the money. It's what's going to get people attached. It's what's going to get your actor. So that one sentence, very important. And it is a skill. And you can Google how to write a log line. And then they'll give you lists of the log lines for famous movies like Jurassic Park and E.T. and stuff. And you'll read them and you go, well, that doesn't sound nearly as exciting as the movie. And it's interesting, like Jurassic Park is something like, genetically engineered dinosaurs escaped their cages on an island in South America or something like that. And so it's like, but the movies, Jurassic Park, was so iconic and so exciting, but at the time, nobody had ever done that. Same thing with E.T. Something like, an alien befriends, a boy in suburban Arizona struggling with his family or something like that. Like, okay, I see, because you already know the story of E.T. But at the time, people read that and went, I've never read anything, that story's never been done, like Armageddon, how easy would that log line be right now? We all know the movie. But at the time, there was revolutionary high concept ideas, and so, but like I said, you can't explain your character in more than a couple words. You can't have one sentence describing your character. You can't have another sentence describing his family. It can't be a full query letter. It's got to be, that one punchy, attention-grabbing, oh my gosh, I have to see that movie right now line. And like I said, it's one of those things where some people are better at it than others. I know I'm better at it because I was a journalist for so long, so I am very trained in taking a lot of information and distilling it down into very few words. That's literally a skill me and my parents paid a shit ton of money into University of Texas for me to learn how to do. So, but that's the thing. So that's the one thing. If you don't, do anything else, to try to get your stuff made in film or TV, find that one awesome log line for your book or your series. And if it's a TV series you're trying to do, that one you can't have two sentences, because you should have a big world in addition to. Like movies can be 3 actors, and it's all a character study. Some of the best films we know are essentially character studies. The Godfather is a character study on Michael Corleone. That is all it is. But there's a lot to it, but that's all it is a character study on Al Pacino's character. And you would think Marlon Brando, but it's Al Pacino's character. It's Michael, it's not. It's actually a character study of God. But anyway, a movie can do that. A TV series, because you have to have 10 to 25 episodes, or 22 nowadays, depending. You should have a big world and a big ensemble cast. So that could be a little more, but no more than 2 sentences. And TV, it's not as, the log line is important, but there's an entire pitch Bible, and again, you can Google TV series pitch Bible. And that's the kind of stuff I've been working on, and that's a different kind of writing in itself. But still, you have to have the log as the one thing that will get you everywhere or nowhere in terms of selling your IP to Hollywood. Now, I don't know if you, James, did you have any part in any of that stuff, or did your agent take it and do all that stuff for you?
As far as the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really didn't. Any of the introductory stuff.
Yeah.
And then the guy that wanted to do the book contacted my agent, so it wasn't.
Yeah. And so what probably happened is there's a thing in Hollywood called coverage, and that's essentially like a book report that they do for books and for scripts, because your full script does not get read until 2 or 3 interns and stuff love the log line and any other pitch that you have. And then finally someone at the top will read your script. It'll go on a file on your desk and they'll read it if enough people love that log line and love any other pitch stuff you had. So what happened, I'm sure, is that someone read your book and they provided coverage, which is, title, log line, comp titles, short synopsis, and maybe, a budget range. Like, oh, this is high fantasy, it's going to be $50 million to make this movie. Or it's grounded in sci-fi, we can actually do it for $10 million, or whatever. So that's their little book report. That gets sent to their boss. And then their boss says, yeah, okay, cool. Let's find somebody to adapt this. And then they send it to a writer who adapts it. And then, whenever the script comes back, there's probably even more coverage now that there's a full story, that's different from your book, and that script got coverage. And if you got to read it, then somebody liked that coverage, read the whole script, and thought it was better than it obviously was, and it got sent out wide, including to you. That's the likely process. But that's called coverage, and that's what people in the industry do. You can pay if you write a script through services, and there's a clearinghouse website called Coverfly that I've used a little bit, and you pay for it. You can pay somebody to give you coverage, but it's usually like the high end is like $150, but some of it's like 30, 50, 75. And so if you want to see what somebody in Hollywood, and again, it would be an intern, or somebody who does coverage freelance, but they usually do it also for the day job, or have done for the day job. If you want to see what the industry might think of what you wrote, and have it judged by Hollywood criteria, not your novel, narrative, prose, storytelling kind of criteria, you can pay to have that and get a snapshot of what they think the problems are, what they like. They will write their own log line. Like I said, they write the log line. Even if you provide one, they'll write their own based on what they read, because they do that professionally. And so if you really need to get a log line done, you can bang out some kind of script that's something like your story and send it in for $75. Somebody in Hollywood can at least give you the starting point for a log line. What they think your main character was, if you had a big ensemble, what they thought the conflict was, what they thought. And so if it doesn't match up with what you think, again, go back and look at your story and see why maybe they thought those things. But that's interesting because, as somebody who edits and does consulting for authors, it's amazing how much more cheaply it's done in Hollywood. Because you couldn't get me to get out of bed for $75 for most of the stuff I do.
So how do you protect yourself if you pay somebody to do that for you for $75? That's the IP thing.
Yeah. So that's like if you use Coverfly, it won't get leaked, and if it does, they have their own kind of protections. They're a pretty major site that a lot of people have used, and they're pretty trustworthy. And you go there and you can get it done by We Screenplay, and other, I don't know, there's companies. And generally speaking, they say, hey, we're not going to leak it, and if we do, you will win a lawsuit, basically. But I will say that anything you write is copywritten the moment you wrote it, and that includes scripts, and that includes novels, it includes whatever is in that young lady's notebook right there. That is all copywritten as soon as it's in physical form. If you get it copyrighted, which your publisher should do, but even if they don't, it's still copyrighted, and you will, if you can prove that if you can produce the email you used to send it to somebody and then, did their own version, you can still win a copyright lawsuit that way. So copyright law very much favors the artist. So people worry about that, I think, a little more now. A general concept, so here's the story about where I got told that people in Hollywood can steal your shit, at least your ideas. So it's the documentary we're working on. We had a phone call with the entertainment lawyer, me and Philip, as co-producers. And he gave us the notes, and he was excited, and we kind of got out a revised and resubmit, basically. This is what we got. But he's going to move forward with it, and both he and Philip are going to put in some developmental money, which is the money you use to produce the documents and then go out and get the real money to actually finance your film. So you get money to get money to get more money to get more money to make the movie. And that is really the process of making a movie or TV series. But what he said, so you need to make it more personal. We need to put you in there, Ricky, not just because we need to make it more personal, but also if somebody looks you up, they're going to see that you're good on camera and that you go on camera and that you've been in movies. So why on earth would you not be in a documentary that's based partially on your report? Okay, I hadn't been thinking about it that way. I had been going at it kind of from a journalist's perspective and sort of laying out this historical story that I was trying to tell, which I will not tell you because I don't want you to write it. You know what I mean? Like, I trust you all, but at the same time, there's no reason for me to go into detail about that. Because of what this gentleman said. He said, if you do it that way, people can find out the information you put on here. Because, I referenced myself in terms of the stories I edited or that I helped write for this stuff. And he said, people can find it, they can just do their own, they don't have to credit you at all. Now, half of your episode guide that you're writing in the pitch is about your personal experience in the newsroom doing this stuff and reacting to the research you did and how you learned all this crazy stuff that happened. Then they can't do that. They can still do a documentary on this subject, but it's not going to be as good and it won't be as personal. And the more personal you make your story, the easier it is to write, obviously, also easier to sell. Even if you're writing complete fiction, one of the things that a producer in Hollywood or a rep, like, we run the phone with this guy, is going to ask is, why should you be the one telling the story? Why should you be the one writing the script? And obviously, if you're adapting those stuff, we'll write the book. But they'll ask again, okay, why did you write the book? Why is this personal to you? The why me question can be as important as the story when it comes to pitching your story to get it made. Because they want to know that. They want to know, why are you the person who writes the story? Why are you the authority? Well, I had that baked in. I had that baked into my episode guide, which, talking about IP, your books are IP, that episode guide and related pitch documents is the intellectual property. So, my co-producer, Philip, is going to make what they call a sizzle reel, or maybe just make a trailer. Most people are just making Hollywood-style trailers now, with voiceover and, like, footage from other films, because you're not going to sell it. But that sizzle reel, and some of it will probably include, like, maybe an interview with people and some of the stuff he knows. That sizzle reel is intellectual property, because somebody in Hollywood, if we send that sizzle reel out, they could say, we love that, we want to make that documentary. Or if we make the documentary, or even just the sizzle reel, and we don't actually make the documentary, they could say, I really like that idea, that concept. They can option that sizzle reel to make a movie, because it itself is intellectual property, which I didn't know any of that before this phone call with the gentleman a month ago. So that was all very interesting too. But being able to pitch is how you get your stuff made. And if you can't do it, like I said, I think the reason I have a literary manager is because I was able to get on a Zoom with her and practice pitching. Actually, no, not this thing, but I practiced pitching a different TV show based on a novel that I quit writing, but I liked the story, so I turned it into a pilot. I think that's the reason why she signed me, or at least had talked to me, It's because she knows that if she gets me in a room to talk about my story, I am going to be able to do kind of what I'm doing to y'all today, only 20 minutes at the longest and 5 minutes at the shortest, you know, the long and short pitch. But I can do that. I can speak about myself. I can get people excited about what I'm working on. I can articulate a vision. And being able to do that is half of it in Hollywood. And so if you can't do that, that's where you partner up with a producer or with a writer who can. And make sure whenever if you're going to hire somebody to adapt your stuff, or say, hey, will you do this, and we'll be co-producers, and if it gets made, we're both going to make, 5% of $100 million, if it's a big money movie. Make sure that they seem presentable. Make sure that they have some sort of background in pitching, public speaking, or some kind of rhetoric. Have they been a politician? They're great at pitching themselves and their ideas. But that's really half of it, and so that's why a lot of writers don't attempt to, they dip their toe in the water, and they haven't heard what you just heard, and they find out quickly that if they aren't comfortable pitching in front of people, and by the way, query letters, you can do all that by email and never even meet your agent. You cannot do that in Hollywood. You have to get on Zoom. You have to pitch orally. You can give them all the documents you want, but you have to pitch orally. You usually have to pitch your representatives orally. I had to go in and do a reading for my agent before she agreed to, she's drawing up the papers now. We can sign with her, but I had to go in. I had to go in and prove that I could act, because I had no deal when things been released. But also, do I seem like I have my head on straight? Do I seem like a normal person? Am I charismatic in person? Because I have to do that if I want to be charismatic. And so, in the TV business and film business, that's the way it is. And I think that's one of the reasons why things are working out for me, is because I have this skill set, in addition to the other stuff I'll talk about. And you understand me, so I'm sure it's about time to get that. So,
Well, I want to encourage everybody to come up here and purchase one of Rick's books, and also while you're up here to sign up again for the Barnes and Noble Book Fest, and get your table in your slot. Also, let's do our raffle, so get your raffle tickets out.
Well, to show the pin, and collection of short stories are $5 a piece. I don't carry cash, and I did not give any out because the bank was closed yesterday. So if you don't have that, if you can pay by PayPal, I can QR code. So we can make it work. And there's only 10 copies because I don't have copies of my books anymore.
Okay.
They're all consigned.